Teleño Lake. Teleño Lake is a freshwater alpine lake in the eastern Sierra Nevada in the U.S. state of California, and one of the highest and largest of the alpine lakes of the Sierra. It lies in a large granite bowl bounded by the Sierra crest to the north, east, and south, at an altitude of 12,829 feet, 3,910 meters. It lies within Sequoia National Park and the Sequoia Kings Canyon Wilderness, nearby, less than 1.25 miles, to Mount Whitney, the highest peak in the contiguous United States. Teleño Lake's altitude and the location at the very crest of the range mean that it is frozen during the winter, allowing people to skate on it, and ice and snow often linger around the lake's shoreline into the summer. For many years after its initial mapping, Teleño Lake was considered the highest lake in the United States, even all of North America, which garnered minor lake fame. However, depending on the definition used, multiple lakes have been found at higher elevations. Several unnamed tarns in the Sierra Nevada are higher, as are a handful of named bodies of water, including Pacific Tarn in Colorado's Rocky Mountains and Lake Waiau on Mauna Kea in Hawaii. The twin volcanic crater lakes of Nevado de Toluca in Mexico are at approximately 13,800 feet. However, Teleño Lake surpasses all of them in size, and may still be the highest named lake in California and the Sierra Nevada. The lake's total volume and depth are not known. Historical news sources report that it is believed the lake lies in a great glacier-gouged bowl of nearly 400 feet depth, but no reliable modern measurements have been conducted. In large part because of its high elevation, the lake played a notable role in the history of California's eastern Sierra, a region fraught with water disputes, and between agriculture and tourism. The lake's fame may have peaked in 1937 when it was a starring feature of the so-called Wedding of the Waters celebration honoring the opening of California State Route 190 from Owens Valley to Death Valley. Geography. Teleño Lake is described as lying in a cirque that, doubtless held a small glacier until very recently. The lake is enclosed by a moraine, through which some water seeps out. The lake is also rimmed with the talus and surrounded by multiple high peaks, 13,563 feet, 4,134 meters, Tunabora Peak to the north, 13,553 feet, 4,131 meters, Mount Carillon to the south, a 13,383 feet, 4,079 meters, subpeak of Carillon, named the Cleaver, to the east, and 14,094 feet, 4,296 meters, 14er Mount Russell, the seventh highest peak in the state, to the southwest. West of the lake, the terrain slopes down to the headwaters of Wallace Creek, which drains out of the Wallace Lakes Basin before joining Wright Creek and eventually the Upper Kern River. Teleño Lake is not accessible by road or trail and is most easily reached from the Wallace Lakes Basin off of the John Muir Trail and Pacific Crest Trail 5 miles, 8.0 kilometers, to the west, or from the steep North Fork Lone Pine Creek drainage to the south, via the pass between Mount Russell and Mount Carillon. A use trail extends from the John Muir Trail to Wallace Lake. History, mapping and naming. Whether the first person to lay eyes on Teleño Lake was indigenous or European is not known. The lake is partially visible from the summit of Mount Whitney, where the first recorded ascent took place in 1873. The lake's surrounding summits, with views dominated by Teleño, were climbed in the early 20th century. Tunabora Peak was first climbed in 1905. Carillon in 1925, and Mount Russell in 1926. According to the U.S. Board on Geographic Names, the name Teleño Lake was first given in 1917 by USGS Chief Geographer R.B. Marshall. It is a portmanteau, based on the lake's location in Tulare County, immediately west of the Inyo County line. The board approved the name in 1928, however, the name appears on maps as early as 1907. And a 1935 Oakland Tribune article states that it was believed the lake was named by government topographer G. R. Davis in 1905. Climate and ecology. According to the Köppen climate classification system, Teleño Lake is located in an alpine climate zone. Most weather fronts in the region originate in the Pacific Ocean and travel east toward the Sierra Nevada. As the fronts approach the peaks, they are forced upwards, in a classic case of orographic lift, inducing them to drop their moisture as rain or snowfall. Precipitation runoff has no major outlet from Teleño Lake and leaves primarily through evaporation or seepage. Teleño Lake is well above the tree line and subject to cold and snowy conditions for much of the year, having an alpine ecology. No trees and very few plants grow in the vicinity of Teleño. One example is Polemonium eximium or sky pilot, a cushion plant that grows low to the ground. Most animals are transient, such as the butterfly Parnassus phoebus and the gray-crowned rosy finch. The few exceptions include yellow-bellied marmots and the American pika, which live in burrows constructed among rocks. Early 20th century sources indicate the lake itself was stocked with golden trout in the 1930s. And Hemming and Moore reported sighting a small fish in the lake during their record-breaking scuba dive in 1998.